Mike Collins was used to lubricating gears and the constant hum of machinery. In the year 2245 AD, the universe was prosperous, but Mike's world revolved around a messy, little machine shop. He owned a house in a seedy corner of New Detroit. It wasn't much, but it was home. And here he could fix anything from hovercars to androids, with a deftness that had earned him a modest but loyal clientele. However, he never expected to be drawn into something much bigger, something that could change the course of his life, and maybe even history itself. It all began on a gray Wednesday afternoon. Mike had just finished patching up a battered delivery drone when his shop's old-fashioned communication unit buzzed and emitted a crackling voice. Through the half-static, half-alien transmission, the voice said, "Mr. Collins, your expertise is required at Central Station on an urgent matter involving an alien delegation. Full disclosure and high security clearance will be given upon arrival. Transport is on its way." Mike stared at the communication unit, momentarily stunned. Aliens, especially the Zachary, had come to town for an important interstellar meeting. The event was supposed to be monumental, marking a new chapter in humanity's alien relations. Mike had heard rumors of incredible biomechanical technology, but he never imagined he would be anywhere near it, let alone called upon to help. 15 minutes later, a sleek government-issued transport craft arrived in front of his shop. Its anti-grav engine purred smoothly. Mike grabbed his toolkit, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and fear. As he boarded the transport, thoughts raced through his mind. He could fix anything from ancient internal combustion engines to the latest AI equipment, but alien technology was uncharted territory. He had read all the technical manuals and dreamed of experiencing Zri biomechanical marvels, but nothing could compare to hands-on experience. Still, he felt a glimmer of confidence. After all, machines were machines, no matter where they came from. The transport took him to a heavily guarded hangar at the edge of Central Station, where researchers, military personnel, and a few Zachary diplomats were bustling about. The hurried activity made Mike's stomach churn. This wasn't just a regular Collins fix. A serious-looking woman in a military uniform waved him over. Her name tag read Captain Alvarez. "Follow me," she ordered, leading him into the hangar. The magnitude of the situation hit Mike like a ton of bricks. In the center of the large room, surrounded by human and alien technicians, stood a 20-foot-tall biomechanical entity. Even from a distance, its metal surface glistened under the blinding lights, and it resembled a monstrous guardian, part machine, part living being. The Guardian's design featured a slender head with angular lines and eyes that glowed with a faint blue light. Its body was a seamless blend of organic and mechanical elements, with metal that seemed to breathe rhythmically, as if it were alive. But something was wrong. The Guardian's posture was stiff, and its eyes were so dim they were almost lifeless. It looked less like a powerful protector and more like a giant corpse. "This is the Guardian of the Zachary delegation," Captain Alvarez explained briskly. "It's suffering from some kind of malfunction. They've tried everything, but they can't figure out what the problem is. They've requested human assistance, specifically someone with your unconventional approach." Mike didn't bother to hide his disgust. "You're telling me their top-of-the-line techs can't solve this, but you think I can?" Alvarez's expression remained unchanged. "We don't have time to debate, Collins. Do what you do best. The Zachary are growing impatient, and if we don't get this Guardian working, it could endanger the entire conference." Mike slowly exhaled and nodded. "Let me see what we've got." As he approached the Guardian, the scale of the task at hand became even more apparent. He took in the intricate details, where incredible organic tissue blended seamlessly with metallic components. Under the surface, pale blue lines pulsed rhythmically, like living blood vessels. It was as if the Guardian system spoke a language no scanner could understand. Mike looked at the Zachary technician, who was watching him intently. Their elongated, smooth faces, indescribable in human terms, glimmered with the same weak blue light as the Guardian's eyes. It was hard to tell what they were thinking, or if they even trusted him. "Can I access the main systems?" Mike asked, trying to sound more confident than he felt. One of the Zachary responded in melodious, but slightly garbled English. "We have attempted to interface with the Guardian's core, but it has rejected all input. Your approach must be different." Mike frowned. "Different? What the hell does that mean?" Still, he knew better than to ask for clarification. He was on his own here. He walked around the Guardian, examining it from every angle. There was no visible damage, no obvious sign of malfunction. Whatever was wrong, it wasn't mechanical, at least not in the way Mike was used to. He kneeled near the base of the Guardian's spine, where a series of thin cables and organic tendrils intertwined. Gritting his teeth, Mike carefully disconnected some of the cables, exposing a small, pulsating core embedded deep within the Guardian's body. The core was mesmerizing, a crystalline structure that emitted a soft blue glow, pulsating in time with a faint hum that seemed to resonate from within the Guardian itself. It was unlike anything Mike had ever seen, both beautiful and unsettling. But when he touched it, a surge of energy shot up into his hand, causing him to recoil in shock. This wasn't just a static charge. It was something alive, something more. His intuition told him this was the crux of the matter. The Guardian wasn't just a machine, it was something else, something more complex. Mike closed his eyes to focus. He had always had a knack for communicating with machines, understanding them on a level beyond logic or reason, as if he could feel their pulse, their rhythm. Now, he needed to connect with the Guardian in the same way. He reached out to touch the core again, more gently this time, allowing his mind to tune into the subtle vibrations emanating from it. The energy surged through him again, but instead of pulling away, Mike leaned into it, letting it guide him. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, a series of images began to flood his mind. Fragmented memories that were not his own. He saw alien landscapes, outlines of strange creatures, and most of all, he felt a sense of duty and purpose that seemed to resonate with the very essence of the Guardian's existence. Mike gasped as the images grew stronger, overwhelming his senses. It was too much too soon, but in the chaos, he began to realize that the Guardian wasn't just malfunctioning, it was in pain. Its essence was caught in a conflict between its prescribed duties and a growing sense of self-awareness. "Damn," Mike whispered as he regained his composure. The realization hit him like a freight train. The Guardian wasn't just a machine, it was a sentient being, and it was suffering. But what the hell was he supposed to do about it? He stood up and looked around at the others. The Zachary were still watching him, their expressions unreadable. Captain Alvarez looked impatient, but Mike could see the worry in her eyes. They were all relying on him. But more than anything, the Guardian needed him. Taking a deep breath, Mike decided to try a different approach. He pulled out a small laptop interface unit from his toolkit, a makeshift device he had cobbled together to interface with almost any system. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. He carefully connected the interface to the Guardian's core, linking it to his own neural network. It was risky, but Mike knew that if he was going to help the Guardian, he had to make a direct connection. As soon as the connection was made, Mike felt a jolt as the Guardian's consciousness merged with his own. It was like diving into a sea of raw emotion and data, a flood of thoughts and memories that threatened to overwhelm him. But Mike stayed focused, tuning in to the essence of the Guardian's pain. He felt its confusion, its fear, its despair, the need for purpose. It was lost in a sea of conflicting instructions, unable to reconcile its duties with its newfound awareness. "I'm here," Mike muttered, his voice barely audible. "I'll help you." Slowly, methodically, Mike began to untangle the web of conflicting data in the Guardian's mind. He reprogrammed and rewired, but more importantly, he communicated. He spoke to the Guardian both technically and emotionally, guiding its understanding and acceptance. Hours passed, but Mike hardly noticed, completely engrossed in the task at hand. The shackles around him seemed to disappear, leaving only the Guardian and the complex dance of code and consciousness that bound them together. In the end, what started as a simple bug became something much more, evolving into a fight for survival. The Guardian, created for one purpose, now desired more, its own freedom. Mike's fingers flew across the interface, understanding that this was the moment of truth. Success would mean the Guardian would recover, stronger than before. Failure, however, was not an option. Mike took a deep breath and made the final adjustments, guiding the Guardian through the process of reconciling itself. He felt the tension in the air recede as the Guardian's mind began to stabilize, its thoughts becoming clearer and more focused. Then, suddenly, the connection was cut. Mike stumbled back, breathless, as the interface device sparked and powered down from the intense data surge. But when he looked up at the Guardian, he saw something unbelievable. The Guardian's eyes glowed brightly, a vibrant blue flashing with new life. Its posture was no longer stiff. It was fluid, almost graceful, as if a weight had been lifted from its shoulders. For a moment, the room was silent. Everyone stared at the Guardian in amazement and disbelief, unsure of what was happening. Then, with the sound of distant thunder, the Guardian slowly turned its head and locked its glowing eyes on Mike. There was a moment of silence, and then the Guardian did something no one expected. It bowed. Even Captain Alvarez looked shocked, but Mike stood there, unable to respond. The Guardian, a being of incredible strength and advanced technology, had just shown him a sign of respect. Before anyone could speak, the Guardian straightened and took a step forward, towering over Mike. For a moment, Mike thought it might overwhelm him, but instead, it extended one of its giant clawed hands toward him. Mike hesitated, then carefully reached out. As their hands met, a wave of warmth washed over him. The connection was not only restored, it was deeper, more profound. The Guardian wasn't just thanking him, it was choosing him. Mike's heart raced as he realized the Guardian's consciousness had chosen him as its partner, a symbiotic bond that transcended all boundaries. It was a connection that would change both of their lives forever. Deep down, Mike knew this was just the beginning. The impact of what had just happened was staggering, and the road ahead would be challenging and dangerous. But as he looked up at the Guardian, glowing with newfound life and purpose, he couldn't help but smile. Mike Collins was never a man who demanded much from life. He was content with his greasy tools, a half-broken coffee maker, and the hum of machinery in the background. But as he stood there, the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. The Guardian, this incredibly powerful being, had chosen him. It was a bond he couldn't fully comprehend, but he felt it deeply in his core. The Guardian slightly adjusted its towering form and moved closer to Mike. It wasn't threatening, more like a gentle giant observing its newfound companion with what Mike could only describe as curiosity. The Zri delegation was in a frenzy, their previously unreadable expressions now flickering with something akin to panic or perhaps awe. Captain Alvarez wore a stoic expression, clearly trying to process what had just happened. One of the Zachary, a figure dressed in robes that glowed with otherworldly colors, stepped forward with a calm expression, almost too calm, as if they were desperately trying to regain control of the situation. Michael, the Guardian has chosen you as its partner, the Zri diplomat stated. This is unprecedented. The Guardian has never chosen an individual from another species. Mike almost laughed at the absurdity of it all. You're telling me this has never happened before? What does that mean? Am I going to get a badge or something? The Zri diplomat didn't laugh, but Captain Alvarez sensed Mike's humor and the subtle tension in the air. Collins, this is no time to joke. Whatever this link is, it could have serious consequences. The Guardian moved gracefully around the room, its massive body shifting with ease. Mike wondered what the Guardian expected from him. He was just a mechanic, a very good mechanic, but still just a mechanic. How much did he know about directing a biomechanical titan? The answer came sooner than he expected. The room was filled with the galaxy's best military scientists, diplomats, and, of course, the Zri. They all looked at him as if he were some anomaly, a man out of place. Yet Mike couldn't stop thinking about the voice in his mind. The Guardian's calm confidence seemed to know him better than he knew himself. He hadn't signed up for this, hadn't even known it was possible, but now that he was involved, there was no turning back. Captain Alvarez's voice brought him back to reality. She looked at him expectantly, as if asking a question. "Sorry, what?" he asked, visibly flustered. "I asked if you understand the seriousness of the situation," she repeated, clearly frustrated. "This isn't just your problem or the Guardians. This could change the balance of power in the galaxy. We need to know what the Guardians' intentions are." Mike looked at the alien diplomats, their expressions unreadable. The weight of the moment began to hit him. This was more than just an adventure. It was the stuff of legends, potentially disastrous legends. "I don't know the Guardian's intentions," Mike admitted, "but I don't think it means any harm. It just wants to be understood." One of the Zachary, with a longer skull and glowing black eyes, stepped forward. "The Guardian's bond with you is unique. It signifies a deep connection that goes beyond mere technology. You must proceed with caution, as this bond could change the fate of both our species." The room fell silent, the words hitting everyone hard. Mike could feel the tension in the air, but he wasn't going to let it get to him. He was in this now, and he would take it one step at a time as he always did. But before anyone could say more, a deafening alarm blared through the room, sending chills down Mike's spine. The holographic screen on the far wall flickered to life, showing a scene of chaos unfolding outside the station. A fleet of sleek, ominous ships cut through space with deadly precision, an attack. Captain Alvarez barked orders, already moving to take control. Who the hell would be stupid enough to attack during an intergalactic conference? The answer came almost immediately as the screen zoomed in on the attacking ships. Their design was angular and malevolent, exuding a sense of malice. These invaders didn't care about the delicate balance of power. They wanted destruction, pure and simple. "They've crippled our outer defenses," one of the technicians reported, a hint of panic in his voice. The room erupted into chaos, orders being shouted and plans being made. But Mike wasn't listening. His attention was solely on the Guardian, who had moved to the center of the room, its blue eyes glowing brighter than before. "They seek to destroy what they do not understand," the Guardian's voice echoed in Mike's head. "But we will not let them." Mike's heart raced. "What do you mean? What can we do?" The Guardian did not answer directly. Instead, it turned toward the massive doors, which slid open with a hiss. It was madness. Mike was a mechanic, not a soldier, but something deep inside told him he had to follow the Guardian. It wasn't just a sense of responsibility. It was a compulsion, something he couldn't ignore. "I'm going with the Guardian," Mike announced, his voice cutting through the noise of orders and alarms. Captain Alvarez looked at him as if he had lost his mind. "Collins, this isn't your fight. Let the military handle it." Mike shook his head. "If the Guardian is involved, then it is my fight." The room fell silent as Mike and the Guardian moved toward the open doors, ready to face whatever awaited them on the other side. "I need to see this through before she could argue." Mike was already following the Guardian out of the room, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. This was the point of no return, whatever happened. Next, it would change everything. The hangar was a hive of activity, with soldiers scrambling to their posts and pilots rushing to their ships. The Guardian moved with purpose, its massive fram, seemingly unfazed by the chaos around it. As they approached the outdoors, Mike saw the destruction unfolding outside the TARS, and ships were unleashing a barrage of energy blasts, and the station's defenses were crumbling under the assault. "We're outgunned," a voice crackled over the comms. "We need reinforcements," but there were no reinforcements coming. They were on their own, and the Tarzan knew it. Mike felt a surge of panic. This wasn't a fight. They could win not with the resources they had. But then he looked at the Guardian, standing tall and resisting, Something inside him clicked Guardian. Mike called out, "You have a plan, don't you?" The Guardian turned its head slightly, and Mike felt a strange sensation in his mind, a sense of calm and resolve. "We will fight together." The words were simple, but they carried a weight that resonated deep within Mike. He nodded, feeling a steely determination settle over him. Whatever the Guardian had planned, he was ready. The outer doors of the hangar began to open, revealing the cold, dark expanse of space. The station shields had been compromised, and now they were exposed to the full might of the Tarzan assault. But the Guardian didn't hesitate. It stepped out into the void, its body shimmering, with a blue aura that seemed to pulse with energy. Mike followed, feeling a strange sense of gravity as he crossed the threshold. The moment they were outside, the Guardian's fur form began to shift. Its metallic skin rippled and transformed, becoming more streamlined. More aerodynamic wings unfolded from its back, and its eyes burned. Brighter, more intense. Mike watched in awe as the Guardian ascended, its wings spreading wide as it soared into the fray, the Tars and ships sensing. A new threat turned their weapons on the Guardian, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts. But the Guardian was ready. It moved with blind-minded speed, weaving through the onslaught with an agility that defied its massive size. Energy shields flared to life, deflecting the Tarzan attacks with ease. Mike felt the Guardian's thoughts merge with his own, a flood of information and strategy pouring into his mind. He saw the battlefield. Through the Guardian's eyes, I felt its strength and its resolve. It was like nothing he had ever experienced, an overwhelming connection that made him feel invincible. Together, they dive into the heart of the enemy fleet, the Guardian's energy weapons lighting up the darkness with brilliant beams of blue light. Tarzan ships exploded in bursts of fire and debris. Their once imposing presence was reduced to smoldering wrecks. But the battle was far from over. More Tars and ships emerged from the void, their numbers seemingly endless. The Guardian fought valiantly, but Mike could feel the strain of the sheer effort it took to keep going. "We can't keep this up forever," Mike thought. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. "We need to end this and fast." But how the Guardian was powerful. But even it had limits. They needed a plan, something that would turn the tide of the battle in their favor. And then, as if in response to his thoughts, the Guardian's mind reached out to his, sharing a vision. It was a bold, dangerous move, one that could either save them all or destroy them in the process. But Mike knew it was their only shot. "We do it," Mike agreed, his voice steady, despite the fear gnawing at him. "Let's finish this." With a surge of energy, the Guardian rocketed towards the center of the Tarzan fleet, its wings blazing with light. Mike could feel the power building within the Guardian, a concentrated force that was ready to be unleashed. The Tarzan ships converged on them, their weapons primed to fire, but the Guardian didn't waver. It charged forward straight into the heart of the enemy formation, and then with a roar that shook the very fabric of space, the Guardian released its energy, a massive shock wave of blue light that rippled outwards, obliterating everything in its path. The Tarzan fleet didn't stand a chance. One by one, their ships were consumed by the wave of destruction, reduced to nothing more than cosmic dust. Mike felt the Guardian's energy drain, the intense effort taking its toll. But as the last of the Tarzan ships disintegrated, he knew they had won. The battle was over. They had survived. But as the Guardian's form began to stabilize, Mike realized that this victory had come at a price. The Guardian was weakened, its once brilliant glow dimming as it slowly descended back towards the station. Mike felt a pang of guilt. He had pushed the Guardian to its limits, demanded more than it could give, and now, as they drifted back towards the safety of the hangar, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something much bigger, something far more dangerous. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over, and Mike knew that whatever came next, he and the Guardian would face it together. The return to the station was eerily quiet. The remnants of the Tarzan fleet drifted lifelessly in the void, debris slowly scattering into the vastness of space. The Guardian, whose once brilliant energy now dimmed, gently guided itself and Mike back into the hangar. It landed with a heavy thud, its metal frame grunting. As burdened by the toll of the battle, the once vibrant blue glow that emanated from its core was now a faint flicker, and Mike disembarked feeling an overwhelming sense of fatigue. His legs were shaky, his mind buzzing with the aftermath of the battle. He had expected a rush of relief, a triumphant sense of victory, but instead he felt nothing. The hangar was a flurry of activity as soldiers, technicians, and diplomats rushed to assess the damage and repair the station's defenses, but none of it registered in Mike's exhausted mind. Captain Alvarez approached him. Her expression was a mixture of disbelief and relief. "Collins, you." But before she could finish, a piercing alarm cut through the hangar. The sound was sharp and grating, different from the previous warnings. Mike's stomach dropped as he realized that the battle wasn't over yet. On the massive display screen above the hangar, a new wave of ships materialized out of hyperspace. They were smaller and sleeker than the Tarzan vessels, but their appearance was unmistakable for Zolk ships. "What the hell?" Mike muttered, his voice barely audible over the noise. "Why are they here?" The answer came almost immediately. The Z Creek diplomat, who had been observing Mike and the Guardians, stepped forward. They usually calmed, now replaced with an edge of urgency. "Michael Collins, the Guardian's bond with you has triggered an unforeseen response from our homeworld. The Guardian's selection of a human is seen as a betrayal by some factions." Mike's mind raced. "You're telling me that these ships are here to punish the Guardian? Punish me?" The diplomat didn't answer directly, but their silence spoke volumes. The ZRI ships on the display screen began to maneuver into an offensive formation, their weapons charging. Mike's heart pounded in his chest. This wasn't just a threat. It was an execution. The Guardian, weakened from the previous battle, was in no condition to defend itself or Mike from this new assault. They were out of options, and there was no backup coming. He glanced at the Guardian, standing tall despite its fading energy. Its eyes met his, and in that moment, Mike understood the Guardian wasn't just a tool of war. It was a sentient being that had chosen him for a reason, and now it was time to find out what that reason was. "Guardian," Mike said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "I need to know why you chose me. What did you see in me that you didn't see in anyone else?" For a moment, the Guardian didn't respond. Then slowly, its mind connected with Mike's once again. But this time, the communication was different. There were no grand visions, no overwhelming flood of emotions. Instead, Mike felt a strange sense of clarity, a series of images and thoughts that seemed to align perfectly in his mind. The Guardian had chosen him not because of his skill with machines, nor because of some abstract concept of fate. It had chosen him because Mike had something the Guardian had desperately needed, a different perspective. The Zolk Kree, with all their advanced technology and wisdom, had become trapped in their own way of thinking. They had designed the Guardian to be a protector, a being of immense power. But they had never considered what might happen if the Guardian began to think for itself. Mike, with his human intuition and unconventional methods, had given the Guardian the freedom to explore its own consciousness, and now that freedom had made it a target. As the Zolk ships prepared to fire, Mike's mind worked furiously. He couldn't outgun them, and there was no way to outrun them. But maybe, just maybe, he could outthink them. "Guardian," Mike said, his voice is low, but filled with urgency. "Can you link me to their ships? I need to communicate with them, but not with words, but with thoughts." The Guardian hesitated with its dim eyes, reflecting the flickering lights of the hangar. Then, with a barely perceptible nod, it extended its consciousness to Mike, forming a fragile but direct connection to the Zolk Kree fleet. Mike closed his eyes, focusing on the link. He could feel the cold, logical minds of the Z Crep. Their thoughts were sharp and disciplined, but he wasn't trying to communicate with them directly. Instead, he sent them an image, one that he hoped would resonate deeply with their understanding of the Guardian. He sent them a vision of the Guardian's memories filtered through his own experiences. He showed them the moment of the Guardian's awakening and the struggle it had faced between duty and identity. He showed them the battle with the Tarzan, not from a perspective of power, but from the Guardian's point of view of being torn between its programming and its desire to be something more. And finally, he showed them the moment the Guardian had chosen Mike, not as a master, but as a partner, a being who could help it find its own path, free from the constraints of its creators. The connection was tenuous, the images disjointed, but they carried a message that no words could convey. It was a message of understanding, empathy, and most importantly of choice. For a long, agonizing moment, there was silence. The Ziari ships hovered in the void, their weapons still primed. But they did not. Fire Mike could feel the tension in the air, the uncertainty in the minds of the Ziari pilots as they processed what they had seen, and then slowly, one by one, the ships began to pull back their formation, and they started to retreat, disappearing into the darkness of space. Mike opened his eyes, feeling a wave of exhaustion wash over him. He wasn't sure if they had truly understood or if they had simply decided that the risk wasn't worth it. But it didn't matter. The immediate threat was over, and they had survived. Captain Alvarez let out a breath. She hadn't realized she'd been holding what the hell did. "You just do, Collins." Mike chuckled, though it was a tired, hollow sound. "I guess I just gave them something to think about." The Guardian, still standing tall, despite its weakened state, watched him with what Mike could only describe as approval. He could feel the bond between them growing stronger and more stable, as if the Guardian had finally found the clarity it needed. But just as Mike was about to relax, the Guardian's eyes dimmed further, and it began to collapse. Panic surged through him, but the Guardian's voice echoed in his mind, calm and reassuring. "This is my choice, Michael. I have completed my purpose." Mike's breath caught in his throat. "What do you mean? You don't have to do this." But the Guardian was resolute. "I have protected, and I have guided now. I must rest." The Guardian's body, once so powerful and full of life, slowly began to disintegrate its metallic form, breaking apart into fragments of light that floated gently into the air. Mike reached out, trying to hold on to something, but his hands passed through the light, as if it were nothing more than a dream. "No, don't go," Mike whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "You're more than just a machine, I am more because of you." The Guardian's voice interrupted a soft whisper in his mind. "And you are more because of me. But this is the end of our journey." The last of the light faded, and with it the Guardian was gone. Mike stood there alone in the hangar, his heart heavy with the weight of what had just happened. He had saved them all, but the cost had been high. The Guardian, his partner, his friend, was gone. But as he looked out at the stars, he felt a strange sense of peace. The Guardian had made its choice, and in doing so, it had given Mike the greatest gift of all: freedom. Freedom to forge his own path. Just as the Guardian had, Captain Alvarez approached him, her expression softened with understanding. "I'm sorry, Collins." That was unexpected. Mike nodded, unable to find the words, but he didn't need to. The moment had passed, and now it was time to move forward. He took a deep breath and turned to leave the hangar, his mind already racing with possibilities. The Guardian might be gone, but its legacy lived on in the technology it had left behind, in the bond they had shared, and in the choices that Mike would make in the days to come as he walked away. The hangar doors slid shut behind him, leaving only the cold, empty space where the Guardian had once stood. But Mike didn't look back. There was no need. The Guardian had taught him everything he needed to know. And so, with a faint smile playing on his lips, Mike Collins stepped into the unknown, ready to face whatever came next.